Great. Round two. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Giant Kelp Restoration Project's third update webinar and our first of 2022. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping. Please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. Feel free to drop any questions or comments into the chat for us to address during the discussion after the presentation, as well as during that discussion, you can raise your hand if you'd rather verbally participate. All right, let's go to the agenda. Okay, so we have about a 20 to 30 minute presentation planned for you all today. We'll start with some introductions from the presenters, and then I'll pass it off to Jen Rowe to provide a brief overview of our diver training class and talk about some exciting opportunities for you to dive with the project. And then Keith Rutzart will provide an overview of the current progress on the project. And then Mark Shargell will review some of the lessons that we've learned after our first season and how we're getting ready for the next one. At that point, we'll wrap up the presentation and we'll just open it up for a discussion. We just would love to hear any questions or comments you have. You know, if you've been actively diving on the project, how is it going? Any feedback you have for us, we'd love to hear. All right, and before we get too deep into it, I would just like to take this opportunity to announce to everyone that we have officially formed a nonprofit or corporation with 5 board members. We have Keith Rutzart, myself, Jen Rowe, Mark Shargell, and Melanie Moreno. And we'll just do a quick round of introductions for our board members and our speakers tonight. So Keith, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. My name is Keith Rutzart. I'm the project leader and executive director of the corporation. This is my first year for Tankers Reef, but my 3rd year for calling urchins in Monterey.
Great, thanks, Keith.
Thanks.
And I'm Casey Cooper. I've been working with the project since last June, and I'm the secretary, and I also do some outreach. I'm also a graduate student in Monterey studying ocean and coastal resource management, and I am a new DM at Bamboo Reef Dive Centers in Monterey as well. All right, I'm passing it off to Jen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I'm a dive master at DOER Marine in Alameda. I've been volunteering with G2KR for a little over a year. I've been helping out with marketing, and just so glad to see that all of you are spending part of your Tuesday evening with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. All right, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Shargell. I'm 44 years in diving the Central California coast. I've been working on marine conservation issues since the late 20th century. In the early 2000s, I sat on the stakeholder group that mapped out the marine protected areas that cover all the dive sites, almost all the dive sites that we dive in regularly. And I've published 4 books on the marine life of the California coast.
Great, thanks, Mark. And we also have Melanie Moreno, who is here. Melanie, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Maybe.
You don't have to. Melanie is a very avid diver here in Monterey.
Melanie Moreno. I have been, I'm in Bonaire right now. And actually today I'm taking a coral restoration class. A little different than urchins, but interesting. And I have been working culling urchins on various projects in Monterey since, I guess, for 3 years, along with Keith's original project. And yeah, it's great to have people here. Thank you. I hope you all join.
Great. Thanks, Melanie. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
All right, and now I'll go ahead and pass it off to Jen so she can talk about our diver class and some opportunities to get involved.
Thanks so much, Casey. So for the kelp restoration diver course, it's offered through NAUI and Patty dive shops and dive clubs in the Monterey area and the Bay Area. So come get trained with us. Next slide, please. In order to take the class, you'll need to have your open water certification and have done at least 20 dives in Monterey. You'll also need to be able to maintain neutral buoyancy and navigate with a compass. If you want to work on any of these skills, you can talk to your instructor about combining this class with some supplementary training. As for what you'll learn everything from Urchin Anatomy 101, how to cull urchins without harming other marine life, how to navigate the grid and the various buoys, and very importantly, how to record and report your data online. Next slide, please. So these are all the things that you'll need to get before diving the project. The first thing is the annual fishing license, which is $54. You also will need a chipping hammer, a slate, some sort of cutting device, an SMB, whistle, and clips or bolt snaps to clip on your gear. And we'll be pasting in links as to where you can buy your license and some of this equipment into the chat. Next slide, please. So the kelp forest needs your help, and we have classes running now. In Monterey, Aquarius has their next class on April 2nd, and Bamboo Reef has their next class on March 26th. And they also have 3 other classes in April. And you can check out their class schedule at bambooreef.com. Next slide, please. So here's a list of all the instructors who can teach the kelp restoration diver class. And the ones with an asterisk are those who are actively teaching the course. You can view this list at g2krlink.com/instructors. And just so you know, G2KR does not set pricing for the classes, and we get no revenue whatsoever from the courses. But what we do get is highly trained and really enthusiastic divers who love volunteering with us. Next slide, please. So for meetups and charters, last season we had 8 meetups, and we were really fortunate to have the Del Monte Townhome Homeowners Association welcome us in off the street. We used to be on Park Avenue. So they welcomed us into their gated complex. And at our meetups, we provide snacks and hot soup to warm you up in between dives. And it's really a great way for divers to meet new dive buddies. We do allow untrained divers to do 1 trial meetup with us so they can experience culling urchins before they take the class. So we would love for you to come and join us for our next meetup. Our next meetup is on Sunday, April 3rd, and you can RSVP on our Facebook page. Next slide, please. We are really excited to announce 2 charter opportunities for trained divers and instructors with their students. The Beach Hopper 2 is taking divers out during the week on alternating Wednesdays and Thursdays. These $50 charters are a lot of fun, and they allow us to get up to 10 divers at a time out at tankers. And then the Vision has generously donated their boat to the project and is coming to us, coming up to Monterey, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. Now, the Vision is a huge boat that can accommodate up to 30 divers, and you can do up to 3 tanks a day. So we'll be able to make a really big dent in the urchin population during these 3 days. We're going to fill the Vision for only $35 a head, and the $35 donation goes to the project and includes air fills, lunch on board, and great dive buddies if you happen to come solo. And there are opportunities for you to take the course on either of these boats. So please reach out to us if you would like help finding a course, and we can coordinate with you and get you an instructor. I'd now like to pass it to Keith, who will go over updates to the Tankers Reef project.
Cool. Thank you, Jen. So I'll give a brief update on the Tankers Reef project. So this is our map here, and this is the first year of the Tankers Reef Kelp Restoration Project. The red line is the perimeter of the project enforcement boundary. The cable grid, shown in green, is where certified kelp restoration divers have been working hard since May. Next slide, please. The result of our hard work is this map. The yellow study grid is 2.5 acres. There are kelp forests to the northwest of the grid and also towards shore. The purple areas are urchin barrens for us to cull urchins this year within the green hat shape that marks the extent of the project boundary, which is 25 acres. Next slide, please. So overlaid on this map, you can see where divers culled urchins this year on and around the grid, as well as in the 6-acre kelp forest to the northwest. We couldn't be everywhere at once, and there were so many urchins that we couldn't get deep into the kelp forest. The urchins there ate most of the 6-acre kelp forest, reducing it to 2.3 acres. We've been working very hard this winter to keep that kelp alive, culling 175,000 urchins after we stopped culling on the grid last season. Next slide, please. Culling urchins on the grid is a year-round effort. We had some storms keep us away at the end of last year, but we are getting into the water very often this year. Culling in the winter is very important because the urchins move into the kelp forest, eat live kelp in the winter, and they aggregate to spawn, which makes them more efficient to cull. Next slide, please. Reef Check California surveyed the grid and found that we reduced the density of urchins to about 1 per square meter, which is below the density recommended by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, and OPC Scientific Advisory Committee. Great job, everyone. This is amazing. 1.1, these only supposed to do 2, so we're overachievers for sure. Next slide, please. The criteria for success were determined by federal and state agencies who recommended we reduce urchin density below 2 per square meter. We reduced urchin densities on the cable grid to about 1 per square meter in only 5 months. No significant bycatch or damage to the reef, and divers were trained to avoid and report accidental bycatch and damage to the reef. No significant disturbance to marine mammals. Divers are trained to avoid disturbing marine mammals. Self-organize. We develop training and host restoration dives. Report adequate data. Divers reported data for over 558 dives and detailed online dive logs to inform marine resource managers. In addition to agency recommendations, divers were trained to be safe, pick up trash, and report invasive species. Next slide, please. So our team is ready for expansion into persistent urchin barrens in marine protected areas in the spring of 2022, right now. But we propose to scale restoration into 3 Monterey State Marine Conservation areas. The state marine reserves have long-term data sets and can be controls for monitoring purposes. We requested rulemaking changes to sanction our community effort, but the petition was denied. Some commissioners are skeptical that we can do this work inside of marine protected areas without damaging other marine. Other commissioners are not convinced that our work will cause kelp to return. Our efforts are even more important than ever. Next slide, please. The initial instruction design was to cull urchins on the grid. To send the white buoy line, check for neutral buoyancy and make sure hammers and gauges are not hanging where they can damage marine life or the grid tapes and lines. Head south on the assigned lane culling urchins. Record the distance traveled with the tape measures. Initially, the urchins ate our tape measures, but we replaced them until we had tape measures down all 10 lanes. But then the winter storms came and tore up everything, and we removed the tapes and the lane dividers too for the season. Next slide, please. At the September instructor webinar, we had completed the grid prior to final surveys, and we turned our focus to the orange and gray buoys. For these buoys, we told instructors to have students descend to the base of the orange or gray buoy and navigate imaginary 5-meter wide lanes in east or west directions from a mark on the tape measure. However, the tape measure broke to pieces in about November. When weather permits, we will deploy a new tape. The lanes on the grid will be reinstalled by April for use during instruction. Next slide, please. There were some modifications to the instructions as the field season progressed and the situation evolved. For culling technique, The goal is to crush each urchin so that it cannot continue to eat kelp. Divers should easily be able to see that the urchin has been culled. For finding urchins, initially we found that divers were having a hard time finding urchins hiding under red algae or kelp. So we instructed divers to look carefully for urchins hiding under algae. Spawning concern. We were advised by our scientific advisory team from CDFW, NOAA, and Reef, California, that the possibility of urchin spawning was insignificant and that we should continue culling during the winter season. The approaches for smaller urchins. Divers culled so many larger urchins last year that now we are seeing lots of small ones that we didn't already cull. We found the most efficient approach was to shake the kelp, let the urchins fall off, and then cull the urchins around the holdfast. Next slide, please. So we have plans for additional science-based projects, and we will introduce them as they come to fruition. In the meantime, you may encounter some white tags on kelp with names and numbers on them around the site. More to be revealed. Next slide. And here is Mark Shargell with an overview of the last season and a preparation for next season. Mark?
Thank you, Keith. We have all learned a lot in our first season of Restoring Kelp. One of the things that the G2KR team learned is that we haven't communicated clearly enough the importance of data collection. That petition that Keith described that was denied, asking to expand the project into the areas that we dive most, requires data to support our next attempt to get that through the Fish and Game Commission. To convince them we need numbers to demonstrate our effectiveness at what we've done. Those numbers come from the firsthand dive reports that you turn in. Your reports also let us know where urchins have been culled and where we still need to send people to cull more, because we certainly don't want to waste anybody's dive by sending them to areas that have been culled already, but that hadn't been reported. On top of all that, we are using each dive log entry as a virtual raffle ticket in our annual Volunteer Appreciation Day. The first one of those is coming up soon. This year, we have received donations that we're looking forward to giving away to our volunteers, ranging from airfill cards to free hydro tests to brand new regulators. The more dives logged, the greater the chance to win. Next slide, please. Now available for your use is a new tool that will help you plan and organize your kelp forest restoration dive day. This Kelp Forest Restoration Dive Day Basics page is for you. You can use it to plan your dive day. It also contains a good recap of the skills you learned in your Kelp Forest Restoration class. It lists the activities you'll want to undertake in pretty much any day you go out to work on restoring kelp. Copies printed on waterproof paper will be available from G2KR while the supply lasts, or you can download the PDF right now from g2krlink.com/basics, and then you can print as many copies for yourself as you like. Next slide, please. So based on our analysis of data received in our first season, we know that many volunteers need a clear understanding of the data entry process. So here we go with some highlights. Please have your G2KR volunteer number recorded and available, because you'll want to attach that to your dive log as you enter it online so that you get proper credit for the dive. If you don't already have a volunteer number, get one at g2krlink.com/register. Every diver should log each dive individually, while a buddy team needs only one lane assignment. To get accurate data on volunteer effort and, of course, a proper allocation of those raffle tickets, we want each diver to log each dive individually. That means one dive done by one diver should result in one online dive log entry, and that's done at, of course, g2krlink.com/dive log. For reporting purposes, we would like volunteers to do the entire dive in one general location. Otherwise, it's really hard to interpret the data. So if you start on the grid, please do your entire dive on the grid. If you complete a lane and move to the next one to the east, that's fantastic, and there's a way to record that. If you start outside the grid, then please do the entire dive outside the grid. We've had a few dive reports with impossible dates in them caused by data entry in a format that the form isn't expecting. So on the next slide, if you push that little button on the report form that looks like a calendar, you'll get this visual calendar. And if you use that, the form will not get confused. The thing has no common sense at all. And if you try to do it with the keyboard, it might get confused. Next slide, please. Similarly, since the form has no common sense at all, if you put a colon, for example, in your entry of dive time, again, it gets very confused. So just the minutes culling urchins should just be numerals. Finally, if there are any irregularities, special circumstances, additional information that you want to report, anything that you want to let the project team know, put all of that in the comments at the end of the form. That's there's plenty of room for that, and that's where we can see it and find it. Finally, if you realize after the fact that you've made an error in your dive log report, just send an email to keith@g2kr.com, and we can fix things after the fact. And that takes us to the next slide and allows me to bring the presentation full circle and kick it back over to Casey.
Great, thanks, Mark. So before we move on to the discussion, just a reminder that, we would love for you to stay informed on the project. Things move pretty rapidly sometimes. So, we're really active on Facebook. So please follow us on Facebook. We also sometimes send out newsletters, and you can also check the data portal results as well. So there's lots to keep up with our project. And as always, we would love to thank our collaborators and our allies who've been, crucial to this project. So thank you to everyone who's been helping out. And with that, we'll go ahead and we'll close up the presentation, and I'll open it up for any questions, any comments, or anything you want to talk about with the project. You can go ahead and raise your hand and unmute yourself, or you can drop it in the chat. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop sharing the screen. Oh, yes. And Jen just put the link. I don't know if you've all seen it. We have a new promo video out there. So if you want to tell friends or family what you're helping out with in Monterey, it's very easily digestible. So go ahead and share that around and help spread the word. Has anyone been out recently and wants to give an update on what you saw?
Well, I guess we can start a discussion. We've been out this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and we hadn't been for 2-3 weekends before that. So I'm gonna say it is a lot better than it was when we started diving on the project last year, for sure. The eastern part of the grid looks pretty good. The west part, so line ABC, and then north of that, there's still work to be done there, I think.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I agree. What we're seeing a lot of is a lot of urchins that are pretty big that are coming in from the west side, and they're coming onto the grid, and they're kind of flooding the zone there. And so it becomes what I was noticing is that there's a lot of very small ones that are like cryptic and hard to see, and then a lot of really big ones. It's kind of like two different kinds of urchins there. And when you do cull an urchin that's been migrating across the barrens, they're particularly empty. When you open them up, there's no gonad at all inside of them. So much so that's like, you know, like you get a little fish coming around, you want to feed it, and you don't have anything to feed it. So yeah.
Yeah, Emily,
Thanks.
do you want to hop in? You are still muted if you're talking. Oh, you're still muted. I don't know if I can unmute you on my end. I can ask you to unmute. Where'd you go? I don't know, Emily, maybe you can drop it in the chat.
We just can't
Yeah.
hear Emily.
Yep. Right, and while we're waiting for her thoughts, anyone else? Well, we also don't have to stay on if, you know, our presentation was just so thorough that you don't have any questions.
Wow, everybody knows all. That's a good problem to have, you know. Everyone's, you know, I know when we first did this, everyone's like, "What? What are you doing?" It was very reassuring that everyone's on the same page here.
Okay, let me ask one.
Yeah,
I remember seeing the schedule of the beach hopper all the way through March. Have you added dates later?
we haven't added dates yet. We will though. Yeah, I need to repopulate that and go out. The idea is alternating Wednesdays and Thursdays, you know, for the rest of the time, as far as I can tell. Yeah. On Wednesdays, Tyler McKinney, who is an instructor with Bamboo Reef and teaches the course in the Naui course. He's a crew on the beach hopper, and he'll be hosting those dives and telling everybody where to go when you go on the beach hopper on the Wednesdays. And I'll be there on the Thursdays. And so I'll be able to tell people kind of where to go on the grid and to get things done. And for Bob Hallam, who just is bold in front of me here, he has a course with on Monday, he's teaching the online version, and then he's got the beach hopper for his whole staff on, I mean, for the whole Ocean Force 8 divers on the Thursday, the 24th coming up. So that boat is accounted for, is all called for. So, there's Emily.
Yeah, there's she is.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
All right.
loud and
Gotcha.
clear.
So I just went out diving last weekend also, and I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but we have like a new little kelp forest growing on the grid, which is super exciting. There's
Ooh.
little baby kelp recruits growing all over the place. And not only that, but I noticed tons of new invertebrate life, lots of strawberry anemones growing all over the rocks, some big gumboot chitons and keyhole limpets out foraging on the red algae that's growing on the grid. So there's definitely, oh, and also we saw a bunch of rockfish that were probably young of the year last year that have grown up and made it like to the next year and are living around in the kelp forest. So there's a
Nice.
lot of good stuff happening out there. I think that we're seeing some good signs. And even though like everyone said, there's a lot of urchins moving in from the north and the west, so more work to do, but also some good signs. So
Awesome update. Thank you, Emily.
yeah, thanks for being patient for me to figure out my microphone.
Hey, it happens to us all.
Yep.
Yeah, Melanie, go for it.
So I have a question for everybody, which is how many of you are coming to the vision when it comes in May? I think it's just such an exciting opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a whole bunch of people there.
Yeah, I think we
So-
have all of the G2KR team going on that Friday. So
Yeah.
anyone else wants to join us diving, but I think, I think Jen, you're also going another day as well. And Mark's going on Sunday. So we'll be there.
Bob, are you coming?
Oh, he's muted.
Terry?
I'm signed up on Friday. I don't know yet
Yay.
if I can do another day.
Nice.
Yeah, good. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be so fun to have 30 people on board, all with the same agenda and eating lots of great lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll be there.
And Melanie,
Yay.
unfortunately, that week I'm diving someplace else where it's warm and sunny, and it's called Hawaii.
Oh, that's
Oh,
that's an okay
nice.
excuse.
You poor thing.
It's tough.
All right, we do have a question from Michael about, is it staying at Tankers so we can just sleep on the boat?
It's kind of a joke.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a valid question for sure.
It's a big boat, but we're not letting us stay over. We just
Yeah, bring
can
a
get
sleeping
on
bag.
each day. And the idea is to meet early, do 3 dives if possible. If you do like short, like half-hour interval, you can get 3 dives in, and then have lunch and back. It's gonna go from the breakwater right there to loading at the breakwater. It's a big boat, so it has to load over there. It doesn't fit into the harbor.
We
So-
had a clever team member suggest that divers who had come from a long distance and wanted to dive multiple days, maybe could just crash on the boat. We actually investigated that and found out that they would need all sorts of lodging permits and all and 24-hour watch and all kinds of stuff that was just unfeasible, unfortunately. The boat is going to leave Monterey the night of the 10th and then do 5 days diving along the Big Sur coast. So I will be on that. Come on, keep me company.
You can understand why the overnight watch is now required.
Yeah,
Great.
Well, we'll be on both the trip down Big Sur and the boat for the Tankers.
Oh, good for
Likely.
you guys. Nice.
See you there.
Yes, you there.
Oh,
We're probably gonna end up taking Monday, Tuesday, and maybe do some more diving.
nice.
you guys are amazing. You do a lot of diving too.
Very envious. Okay, well, I mean, maybe with that, we can go ahead and, stop the meeting. As much, I love talking to divers, but I'll just have to.
Paul has to say, Paul Souza just tuned in late here.
Oh, hey, Paul.
He was out last weekend. Let's put him on the spot. Well,
We got some good dive reports. Paul, do you have anything that you want to add about what you've seen?
It was really cool over the weekend. There was a lot of new algae and a lot of new like critters, and it was just it was really nice to see, and a lot of recruits out there. I do have the photos, and I just need to like touch some things up, and then I'll send you guys the link to my drive for those, because I was more focused on the recruits and getting the divers in the background, and and so that way you guys want to use that for the website or whatever, they're all free to use.
Great, thanks, Paul. I think Keith showed us a little preview and they were awesome. So thank you.
that was a different one he did. He's got more.
Oh,
Those are more
There's more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And more from last weekend.
from the weekend. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we even tried an underwater selfie for the first time.
Ooh.
You kind of put the camera up there and all of us posed. We'll
Nice.
see how it comes out. I'm curious.
Let me find it.
Look, we've
Wait,
seen.
I'll send you the
He
link.
sent us a link about it. Yeah, yeah. There's a whole section of kelp that's south of the grid that it's kind of a gimme, you know, like we didn't really do much to deserve that. We didn't call really urchins out there so much, but there's a kelp forest there. It's kind of where the sand meets the rock right at that point. And there's some good healthy kelp there. It's kind of suppressed. The urchins are suppressed by the acid weed that is on that area. But the urchins aren't there. They're in cracks, and so we've done a lot of work to clear those out of there. But it's really doing pretty well down there. On the southeast corner of the grid, we're seeing just a lot of these little recruits, like Amelie was saying. They're just like 2 inches tall, and they're like spread out everywhere. So it's really encouraging to see that. All that growth, you know, is looking very optimistic. You know, I mean, we had a lot of losses. You know, we had a lot of urchins eating kelp, but you know, this time last year we didn't have any of that. So kelp grows very fast, and hopefully it will do really well on the grid and prove our efforts can restore kelp.
Okay. Well, with that, I think big thank you to all of you for joining, and for all of you regulars who support the project. We're so appreciative, and it's so nice to hear all of your dive reports.
Yeah, can I just jump in and thank Emily and Amelie for their very observant, sharp-eyed reports. You're obviously very great appreciators of the ecosystem and kind of understand what's going on. And I think it's valuable to all of us to hear your observations. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who took a chunk of their evening to spend it on this project, in addition to the time you spend diving on it. Thank you.
Is that the selfie?
There it
Nice.
is.
That's
The
fine.
infamous, that's a really good selfie.
It's a nice one.
Yeah.
Well done.
It takes some, you have to have a long arm.
It's just this wide angle.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, we will send it to us. We can post it.
Yeah, good one.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got to be careful when you take a picture that your yellow, your octopus is securely fastened and not doing weird loops like that.
Like what?
I think Brian's hose looks kind of strange. It's like little curly Q. Looks like it's.
Oh.
Okay, I think with that, we'll go ahead and we'll give
Yes.
you all your evening back.
Yes.
So thanks again. We'll upload this on YouTube. Maybe we'll cut out some of our discussion at the end, but who knows? So stay updated, follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you out there. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.